And welcome everybody to this week's episode of Two Guys on Politics with co-hosts, former Congressman Bill Lipinski and myself, Ray Hanania. It is June 20th, 2025. This is season 4, episode 14 of Two Guys on Politics. And we're broadcast on the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 radio in Michigan, as well as on YouTube. And you can get us online at YouTube by going to twoguysonpolitics.com. We invite you to subscribe to get the latest episodes. My co host for this radio show and podcast is Bill Lipinski. Bill served as Democratic Committeeman and Alderman of Chicago's 23rd Ward, and Lipinski was then elected to Congress in 1983, serving through 2005. He currently writes the Right from the Center opinion column at the Southwest News newspaper group chain of community papers in the Chicagoland area in Illinois. And of course, I covered Chicago City Hall from 1976 through 1992, and I write mainstream columns for the Southwest News newspaper group, as well as columns and news on Arab American and Middle East issues for Arab News newspaper. You can get more information on me at hanania.com. We have several topics that we're going to talk about during the radio show today. One of them is the Israel-Iranian war. The other is, what's happening? How is this impacting Trump? It seems like a lot of his people are bailing on him. And then we're going to look at some of the Chicago stuff. And of course, we encourage you to always email us if you have any topics or comments that you want us to share online. We will read them. We're happy to do that. All right. Again, this is Two Guys on Politics. It is June 20th, 2025. We're going to take a quick break for some commercials. And when we come back, we'll begin our podcast radio show. Myself, Ray Hanania, and my co-host, former Congressman Bill Lipinski. We'll be right back right after these messages. And welcome back to Two Guys on Politics with our co-host, former Congressman Bill Lipinski, and myself, Ray Hanania. Bill, welcome to the show here at WNZK AM 690. It's I hear from our station program producer director Layla El Husseini that we're doing really well. So we appreciate what the radio station is doing for us to get the word out.
I'm very happy to be here, and I thank you for getting it all set up.
Yeah, and now just for our listeners, we do the show every week. We've been podcasting for 4 years, actually, and we're on YouTube at Two Guys on Politics. But we have and we just started last week to broadcast on WNZK AM 690 radio in Detroit and Michigan and online. But we got some interesting stuff going on. I mean, geez, this war between Israel and Iran. First of all, it's been 2 weeks, and Israel has not. I mean, they pounded the Iranians, and the Iranians have pounded them back. What's come of this? I mean, a lot of people are worried.
Well, I'd like to know where it came from. It just seems to me like all of a sudden Israel was attacking them, and I really didn't know what was going on before. If there was much going on before, it certainly wasn't being amplified by the news media at all. So the Israelis are going after them. They're retaliating. And then all of a sudden, President Trump says that the Ayatollah should grant unconditional surrender. Now, I don't know where that came from. It seemed like it came right out of the blue. And then it seemed like, within the next hour or two, we'd be flying our big planes over there and sending our missiles over there. That we were all set to go for broke. And then all of a sudden he decided, well, I got to take 2 weeks to think about this to see where we're at. So quite frankly, Ray, I'm a little bit confused by the situation. I wish I understood it better. I don't. I don't think that no matter what happens here, I don't think there's going to be a good result of it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think this came out of the blue, and I tried to do some research for why would Israel now attack Iran? They were in negotiations with the U.S., for the nuclear suppressing their nuclear program. And then, by the way, this isn't the first time Israel's attacked Iran. Israel has attacked Iran and their nuclear sites almost 10, maybe 12 times since Netanyahu has been in office back in the 90s. And it seems like, what made this one stand out. And one of the things that I found was that one, I think the Israelis were worried that Trump was going to actually get an agreement with the Iranians. Remember, they had an agreement with Obama that Trump ripped apart when he came into office. But I think the Israelis don't want the U.S. and Iran to have an agreement. They really are looking at dominating the Middle East because they're in wars all over the place now in Syria and Yemen and Gaza and Lebanon. I mean, it's amazing how many wars have broken out. But the other thing was that the United Nations and the U.S. was involved with this. They were going to convene this week or next week a meeting to look at the creation of a Palestinian state in the wake of this Gaza war. And I don't think the Israelis wanted that. So, hey, what's the best way to throw everything in turmoil? Attack somebody because this was just, in my opinion, it was unprovoked. Now, I mean, you see the devastation on both sides, don't you?
I certainly do, but I don't think it was unprovoked. I have to disagree with you there. I think the Iranians have been after the Israel for a long time. They've said they wanted to wipe it off the face of the earth, get rid of all of its leaders. Of course, they've said the same thing too about the great Satan, the United States of
Yeah.
America.
I
Well,
mean,
the United States of America could crush them like a grape if they chose to do so. Although there are 91 million people in that country. Here, maybe you can answer this question for me. People say that women are treated like chattel, okay,
right.
in Iran.
Yeah, I
There are
mean,
12,000 students in this country from there studying engineering. Now, unless what I've been told and what I've read is incorrect, 6,000 of those are women.
yeah.
So how enslaved can women be if they're in the United States studying engineering?
Well, listen, we've never really objectively looked at Iran. And the reason why is because the prior dictatorship, the Riza Shah Pahlavi, the Shah and Shah of Iran, was our ally up until I think, what was it, 1979 under Carter. Remember that?
Well, oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then the Iranians took hostages, and that went on for I think 3 years, and it helped bring down the Carter administration, and then it brought in the election of Ronald Reagan, and as soon as Reagan was elected, they released all the American hostages. But the Shah Pahlavi, his son Riza Pahlavi, is in the U.S., and there's a group of Iranians who support him. And nobody remembers that the Shah was a dictator and a tyrant who killed more than 1 million Iranians. He had uh, an armed group, not a militia, a secret service called the Savak. I don't know if you remember that.
No, I
And
don't.
this, and if you expressed any opinion, and if the government didn't like it, they'd grab you. You'd disappear, and you'd end up in the Shah's gulag. And they, according we looked this up online, and there was something like 100,000 people that were, in.
Well, those were all communists, though, weren't they? The rest of
Yeah, I
everybody
don't think
that
that they could be communists because the Shah didn't allow them to read. You weren't allowed to read foreign stuff, and women were oppressed under the Shah. There was some westernization, it's true, but it's really the religion, I think, the extremists in the religion that push the oppression of women. And so today, the Ayatollah in 1979 comes out of,
France.
yeah, it comes out of France, returns, sets up a government, and immediately we start fighting with them. And when it's like with Trump, if you start fighting with Trump, he's your worst enemy. If you if you like, in a way, Trump is like an Iranian. If you get mad at him, he gets even madder at you, 10 times madder at you. And it's been like that ever since 1979, and we haven't been able to do anything. Iran is a powerful country, and you could look at the devastation that they've wreaked with their missiles on Israel. Some of those sites look almost as bad as what Israel is doing in Gaza. It's like, wow, okay,
Oh, I knew
so
we'd get around to Gaza
well,
eventually.
you can't avoid it because it's our money. It's coming out of your pocketbook and mine, isn't it? I mean, don't they tax us and they give the money to Israel to pay for all this stuff? So, I think Israel, in my opinion, the government, not the country, the government has gotten out of hand. I think they're trying to drag us into a war because I think they're running out of munitions and missiles. There's a limit to how much they can fire, as many planes as they have, the Iranians too, and they need us to step in. And what's Trump said? He says, "Oh yeah, I'll make a decision in 2 weeks."
Well, originally, it sounded like he was going in,
Yes,
in an hour or so.
yeah, but I mean, what do you make of that? Serious?
Here, let me ask you the question. You're my
Yeah.
Mid East uh, expert. What do you think the United States of America should do? What's in our best interest?
Well, I was looking at a poll that came out from YouGov. It's and the Financial Times. They just came out with a poll, and they said, obviously America. It says America is divided. 50% view Iran as an enemy. 50%, view them as unfriendly, but not an enemy. And but they say that 60% of those polled said that we should not enter and get engaged in this war, that it's being done because Israel wants us to do that. 65% of Democrats say they don't want it. 61% of independents are against it. But surprisingly, it says 53% of Republicans oppose U.S. military intervention in Iran. And aren't we seeing some problems, with the Republican Party behind Trump, as a result of this? There are a lot of, MAGA supporters that don't want to go to war. They don't want us to keep funding Israel. That Representative Green, Majority Taylor Greene, she's been outspoken. Her and Tucker Carlson, they've gone off the deep end criticizing Trump. And why should we, Bill? I mean, why should we fight this war for Israel? What do you think?
Well, I think it would be nice to get rid of all of the people who are against Israel, because if we don't, this stuff is going to continue. I don't know where we end, and eventually we're going to wind up getting dragged into the situation. Now, I don't know what to do at the present time. Certainly, we could join in with Israel, and as I say, with our military power, we would have no trouble whatsoever subduing Iran. But what are we going to do once that happens? Okay, country's awfully big. We're not going to occupy it. We're not going to put any troops on the ground. So Israel is going to have to do this themselves. But Israel cannot possibly conquer the entire Arab Muslim world. There's just too many of them. Okay, it's impossible. Now, are they going to be able to make deals once this is over? I don't know. But I mean, we have to find a way to protect Israel so it's not blown off the face of the earth. By the same token, I'm not interested in taking on every Arab, that exists in the Middle East. I don't really, Israel has a lot of flaws. they're probably the better democracy of anything else in the Middle East. It is really a very, very sticky wicket, as
Right.
the British used to say every once in a while. I don't really know what to do. I wish we had a president that was more reasonable and rational than Trump, because I sometimes think he goes up. Well, we know he goes
Yeah.
out off half cocked on things time after time. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what to do. That's why I say to you, you're my Middle East expert. I'd like to know what you think the United States should do.
Well, my feeling number one is Netanyahu is the problem. It's the government. They're an extremist government. In my opinion, they're worse than the Iranian mullahs. These guys are religious fanatics in the government. He's given, Netanyahu was under indictment, facing three corruption charges when he started all these conflicts 3 years ago, and he's been continuing. These conflicts prevent the Justice Department from doing anything to him in Israel. So I think he's the problem, and he's dragging the United States down, in my opinion. The other part of the problem, though, is that Trump, he's indecisive. And I don't think, and I think he's really weaker than he makes himself off. Uh, he should have taken control of this, and he should have put his foot down. He should have stopped the conflict. He was negotiating with the Iranians for a nuclear deal, and now he's like lost. He says, "Oh, well, I'm going to make a decision in 2 weeks," and all I'm thinking of is, yeah, like Russia and Ukraine. This is 3.5 years. Russia and Ukraine, we're fighting a war, and we can't let the Russians win, but it's costing us billions, just like the Israelis are costing us billions. How do we sustain that given all our problems? I'm tired of getting involved in any wars, or I don't want to get involved in anything. I want to see us cut all our money for all these countries, all of them, hell with them all. Let's start, taking care of us, the United States.
Well, that's one point of view. I can't say that I share that totally and
Yeah, it's
completely, but I do not have an answer to the situation. I wish I did, but I do not know enough about all of it. I do know we have to make sure that Israel continues to exist for numerous reasons. Okay. Other than that, I don't really know where to go with the situation.
Yeah, now listen, I think it's more media propaganda that Israel's threatened. I think Israel's the biggest military in the Middle East.
Oh, no question about
They
it.
can fight 5 wars at one time, which is what they're doing. And of course, they're using our money and our weapons. We enable them to do it. But I think they're out of hand, and I think they're going to bring their own demise. I think what they've started is going to come back to roost in a bad way for them. But let's turn to Trump a little bit, because
Yes, I think that's
this
a good idea.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, the U.S. rep, she was a big MAGA supporter. She is a MAGA supporter, and a big supporter of Trump. But she and Tucker Carlson have stepped back from Trump, saying, "What are you doing? Why?" And she agrees with me. Why are we giving Israel any money? Why don't and or any country? All that money should stay in the U.S. And I'm thinking, wow. In other words, do you think that this MAGA, this conflict, this issue of foreign intervention and money is going to disrupt Trump to create the crack that may bring him down? Do you
Well,
think that?
first of all, the United States of America is and always has been an isolationist country. We firmly believe that we have the Atlantic on one side and the Pacific on the other side, and no one is really going to be able to get at us. So we ought to just get out of all these entangling alliances, as
Right.
George Washington once warned us against. Uh, and I, I am not one for us becoming involved around the world. By the same token, I do think we have to exercise our power in certain times, in certain places. I don't think the Middle East is a place to do that at the present time. Uh, and we are not a bottomless pit as far as money goes. It does cost us money on these weapons, on everything to support the people who are fighting these wars. Uh, that's got to stop. We cannot continue to do so. We can only print so much money before the inflation is going to make us look like Germany in 1920. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a problem. I think the Trump supporters, the hard-line Trump supporters, the people who would still vote for him if he shot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue, are strong isolationists. They do not want
Right.
any kind of foreign involvement on the part of the United States. And I think that Green, I think that Tucker Carlson are both expressing, that feeling of those supporters of Trump. I'm sure that there's a number of other people who would say the same thing, but they don't have the courage as of yet to speak out against Trump. I think they will in the next 2 weeks, trying to prevent us from becoming further involved in the Middle East situation. Now, I think it's ironic that Tucker Carlson and Margaret Taylor Greene
Right. Yep.
have been two of the devils for the left wing in this country for several years. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, if you watch the
Yeah.
liberal news media,
Yeah.
these people are great Americans.
Yeah.
I mean, it is disgusting how people can change their spots so rapidly because of their political direction. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just incredible to me.
Yeah, that is one of the problems. One of the problems that has always been a problem for the American news media. They're biased. They're not professional anymore. They take political sides. You got one group, and I think it's a larger group. Promoting the left, and then you got another group. I think a little bit smaller, but equally as loud, promoting the right, and it's dividing America. I think in a bad way,
Absolutely.
and I think it hurts us. But it is interesting because you're right. The fundamental MAGA supporter is an isolationist, and we're
Absolutely.
seeing these cracks. Like Trump has been criticized in a way by Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, and he's pushed him out of his inner circle. There's a story in the Economic Times that details all this stuff about how they've opposed, this move, and Hegseth is a defense secretary, and Tulsi Gabbard is director of national intelligence, and they don't want us to see, they don't want the U.S. to go into this foreign intervention. So it is interesting to see this happen. I mean, it's maybe it's not unusual, right? We've seen this with Trump. He hates people, they hate him, and next thing you know, we talked about this the last time. The people that attacked him are now his best friends, and they're in his cabinet. So
Well,
it's like he's fluid. He's like Mercury, or and he just rolls wherever the table leans.
I don't know what happens with Israel in the Middle East, but I say at the end of this 2 week period, if you ask Trump what's going on, he'll say, I'm tied up with such and such and so and so. I really haven't had a lot of time to deal with this situation. I'm going to extend the time limit, okay? And he just going to hope the whole thing goes away. Because he's handled so many things that way. Many of the trade deals that he says we have, we have this great trade deal with the
Right.
European Union. No one has seen it. How do we know what it is? He's working on one. He's almost there with China. He's the only one that says that. Everybody else says, well, the Chinese are being very hard nosed. So I just think the Americans wind up not doing anything in the Middle East other than support Israel, in
It's
Gaza.
easy. It's easier to do it, right? I mean,
Oh,
that's
sure.
our mindset has been built that way through the media and over the years. Listen, it all started with that movie Exodus in 1959. It was a book the Israelis commissioned the author. I can't think of his name right now. Famous author. to write the book, and they wrote the story, and the story became the movie, and Paul Newman became the face of the movie. And for most Americans, that's always defined what the conflict has always been about. And the Arabs are so closed. They don't understand communications. They can't talk to the Americans. They don't know how to talk. I mean, it's terrible. They get upset, emotional. You've seen them, right? Because
Absolutely.
your
I've seen it
district,
firsthand when I was in Congress, very
yeah,
definitely.
in the your district, the fifth, and then later designated the third district, I think, had one of the largest populations of Palestinians and Arabs, and they were emotional. They could not come up with a definitive strategy to get anything done. And that's been going on. How many years ago were you in Congress? I think it was
I've been retired
2005.
for 20, and I
Yeah,
was there
right.
for 22. So you're
So we're
talking about
talking
going
40,
back 42 years.
42 years of a community that's been totally dysfunctional. Anyway, listen, we have to take a quick break here
Okay.
at Two Guys on Politics at WNZK AM 690 radio in Michigan. I'm Ray Hanania, and my co host, of course, is former Congressman Bill Lipinski. This is June 20th, 2025, and it's season 4, episode 14 of Two Guys on Politics, our podcast and radio show now broadcasting on the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion with Bill Lipinski and myself right after these messages. And welcome back to this week's episode of Two Guys on Politics with co-host former Congressman Bill Lipinski, who covered the Southwest. His district covered the Southwest side and suburbs of Chicagoland in Illinois. Had one of the and has in that area one of the largest Arab populations and Muslim populations in the Midwest and around the country. And of course, I'm Ray Hanania, writer and columnist with Arab News newspaper. It's June 20th, 2025. This is season 4, episode 14. And Two Guys on Politics is broadcast on the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 radio, as well as on YouTube at twoguysonpolitics.com. We invite you to subscribe. You can even email us if you go to twoguysonpolitics.com. You can get our emails for Bill or I, and you can send us questions or maybe comments, which we'll read, on future shows. So in the first segment, we were talking about the war, Israel war in Iran, how it's impacting Trump's administration. And now I was thinking that we kind of, Bill, talk about, we still have a division in this country. We don't have one solid voice. And I think that's part of the weakness, why we're kind of drifting in all these things, why all these things are happening around the world, because we're not asserting ourselves. We don't have a country that's united to assert we're united on issues, I think, certain issues, obviously, but no, we're not strong enough to assert ourselves to prevent people from doing stupid things in other countries. There are other ways that are going to drag us into a conflict. So what do you think of the state of the Democratic Party? Is there anybody that's surfaced that you see that really can take on Trump, that can correct all these problems?
Well, Trump is not going to be there, Ray. I
No,
think
but I mean, he's there for
personally
3
he'll be
more
as vice
years.
president.
Yeah, but he's
But
there for 3 more years, and it doesn't
yes, he
sound
will.
like there's a strong. Is there an opposition voice that's strong enough?
Well,
We
Pritzker
don't.
is trying to be that, but I don't think he's achieving it.
Right.
I think that will be very difficult because of the fact that you have so many people want to be the Democratic nominee for president. They're all going to be speaking out. So, support for individuals in the Democratic Party for president will be very significantly divided, probably amongst 10 different people. Uh, Before we get into what candidate might be the tip-top candidate for them,
Yep.
in our opinion. I don't think the Democratic Party is going anyplace
Yeah.
unless they get their act together.
Yeah.
Right now, who does the Democratic Party represent? I don't know.
Yeah.
It used to represent the working class in this country, particularly, frankly, the white working class. they have lost the white working class totally and completely. So until they get those people back, you know, I don't care who their candidate is. I don't care if it's George Washington. He's not going to win or she's not going to win. So they got to get their act together on what they stand for. They have to return to their roots, which were take care of the middle class, take care of the unions, grassroots politics, grassroots concerns. Don't be going off defending, the gay community, the transgender community. Fine. You want to defend those people, but don't make it such a centerpiece,
Right.
of your campaign. What happened the last campaign, those kind of issues just overwhelmed the economic issues, which are the most important issues to Democrats. So that's my spiel on it.
Yeah.
Who is the best candidate to take on the Republicans? I have no idea at the present time.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at the fact that I know of 3 people of Jewish heritage who are running
Right.
president: Pritzker, Rahm Emanuel, and the governor of Pennsylvania, which I think is wonderful. I'm very, very
Josh
happy.
Shapiro. Yeah, Josh Shapiro.
Because once again, that was an oppressed minority in this country. They've obviously done very, very well. We all know that. But they haven't really had an opportunity to elect a president. Maybe this time they will. The country may be ready for it. I tell you, a guy who is very articulate, a guy who I like very much is, I'll never pronounce his last name correctly, Pete, whatever it is.
Buttigieg. Buttigieg.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a tough name. He's the former U.S. Secretary of Transportation, right?
Exactly.
Pete Buttigieg.
He's openly gay.
Yeah.
Fine, he's openly gay.
Yeah.
That's his business. But you're not going to elect an openly gay person as president of the United States.
Right.
Not now, maybe in 20 years or 30 years or 50 years. Sometime in the future, yes. People said we would never elect a black man. We elected a black man, okay? Eventually, all of these things will fall. But that's not going to happen now. Who do you think would be the best candidate for the Democrats?
Well, I was going to say that, I think you're right. The Democratic Party has drifted away from its core base and
Right.
focused on fringe issues. And that's not to say they're not important. They talk about transgender issues all the time. They talk about gay rights, LGBTQ, and I can't even come up with all the letters of the label that keeps changing. Those are very important issues, I think, but they're not the dominant issues. But they're treated like they're the most important issues,
Absolutely.
and they're abandoning the white community because not every white person is a racist. The
No.
majority of white people are American. They're middle class. They want to do what's good for the country. They want to support this country. They believe in the rule of law. They believe in fairness. They're not racist, but they get pegged as being racist, and they get abandoned by the Democrats because the Democrats don't waste any time on white voters anymore.
Right.
And I think that has pushed these white voters to the right, into the lap of the far right and Donald Trump. What choice do we have? There isn't much choice at all, significant choice. So we lose all these people to the right. Trump wins. And now we're sitting here in disarray, and there isn't any good Democratic leader. I haven't seen anybody. I personally, I don't like J.B. Pritzker, the governor, because I live in Illinois, and it's one of the worst states when it comes to taxes, economy. It has so many problems. And I would hate to see all that stuff, happen to the country. The other guy I don't like is Rahm Emanuel. He was a former mayor for 2 terms in Chicago. What did he do when he was in Chicago except wreak havoc? He left under a cloud when he hid that tape of, I think it was Laquan McDonald, that black
Yes, it
kid
was.
who was a criminal. That kid was involved in criminal activity. He had a weapon, but the police, I think, excessively shot and killed him. Things that get out of hand, and he was responsible. He's not a good person, in my opinion. Of course, he hates the Arab community, so we're screwed. Josh Shapiro, not bad. I don't know enough about him, because he is a decent person, but he's from Pennsylvania, and we don't hear, the only people I hear about are Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, very controversial. I don't know how good of a person he is. Cory Booker, he's an African American leader from New Jersey, right? I don't know. Is he strong enough? Raphael Warnock from Georgia. Maybe Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, but I don't know if a woman is going to be strong enough to stand up to the Republicans, in the election in when is it? 2028, I think.
Well,
So,
I don't think this country is ready to elect a woman.
I mean, I think you're right. I think the politics has dragged it all down,
Absolutely.
making it even harder for a woman. I think Kamala Harris did such a terrible job that people are going to be thinking
I
twice.
think a Republican woman would have a much better shot today at becoming president than a Democratic woman.
Yeah, so that's our big problem, isn't it? There's no leadership, real strong leadership on the Democratic side. It's in disarray. There's still now, we are, you know, 2 years, 2.5 years away from the election. But that means we're only a year and a half away from when the campaign would start, or a year away from when the campaign starts. And a year away, I cannot tell you who would be a strong Democrat to step up to the plate, bring everybody together. You know what I mean? Help us
Absolutely.
overcome our problems. I just don't see it. And
Well,
I know,
I don't think it's possible to put the old Democratic coalition back together with the new
yeah,
Democratic Party. I
yeah,
think conflicts are too wide. I really believe it's going to be necessary for a new party to emerge out of the extreme right wing MAGA people in the Republican Party and a new Democratic Party. And the white working class people who used to be Democrats are now Republicans. It's a very difficult issue, a very confusing issue, but we need two strong parties in this country. Excuse me, look at the chaos that has existed since Trump got into office, okay?
yeah. He's been
The
in
second time
almost
around.
6 months. Yeah,
And the Republicans control the House and the Senate. Now, I believe that the Democrats are going to win the midterm election and control the House of Representatives. Can you imagine the chaos, the confusion that is going to happen once he no longer controls every aspect of government? The House of Representatives will be investigating every single thing he does,
yeah.
which will slow the government down to nothing. We will be paralyzed. Not good, not good at all.
Yeah, and you're saying not good that we'll be paralyzed. I agree with you that we're going to get into a party battle by two weak leaders, the Republican Party in disarray, and they look like they're together only because the Democrats are in so much disarray. The Republicans look better, but they're no better than the Democrats because we're seeing the Republican Party come apart little by little at the seams, with a number of people, criticizing Trump. And he's coming across weak himself. He's been in almost 6 months. What has he done? Do you know what I mean? What has Trump done? All his promises, I'll bring the war in Ukraine to an end immediately, day one. Remember his day one this, day one that, day one everything. Day one nothing. Or, the tariffs. Yeah, maybe we'll get a few tariffs, but the cost of eggs are, I mean, the food costs. We focus on eggs, but my grocery bill doubled, from a weekly 200 to like $400. I don't know how the people out there survive dealing with what's happening in the economy. So
I
it
don't either.
is it is disconcerting, and I don't see any real hope, and that's more disturbing to me, that I don't see anything out there to pull us out of this problem. And I think that's why we have all these foreign countries doing everything that they're doing and trying to drag us into it. And I don't want to get dragged into a conflict, but it's not very positive out there, I don't think.
No, I certainly agree with you. It's not very positive, and it's not very good for our country. It's not very good for the world. We
Yeah.
have always been a stabilizing influence, and I don't think we are a stabilizing influence any longer. Uh,
Yeah, I agree. And
I don't think that we have the world's greatest military, but I do not think that we use it in the proper way. But that's
right.
another program for another time.
Right. Yeah. So let's shift into Chicago, because there's kind of like a division, obviously, in Chicago. I wouldn't say it's the council wars like it was back when Harold Washington was mayor, but in a way, it is council wars, isn't it? Isn't that what we're seeing in the city council, two
I
sides
think
now?
so. Yes, absolutely.
And but is it? I always thought that's the reporters when I was a reporter, they'd always say, "Oh, why don't we have an independent city council?" Now we do kind of have an independent city council, and we're comparing it to a conflict.
Right. Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
like we can't get a positive spin on what's happening in the city council. With Brandon Johnson, he's African American. He's kind of a neophyte. He's learning. A lot of people don't like him. The polling on him is, weak. And I don't know. How do you view first of all, what's happening in Chicago?
Well, I think that his position in regards to the curfew is a terrible political position. That's number one. Number two, I think it's a poor practical position because you've seen these teenage kids
Right.
they get together in such large numbers. Things get out of hand. I've seen them, destroying cars. I've seen them throwing things at the police department. I mean, I've seen them breaking windows. I've seen them going into buildings along Michigan Avenue, taking clothes out. Something has to be done about that. We cannot allow that to continue. Now that they come from poorer neighborhoods, I understand that. I appreciate it. But Johnson has poured a lot of resources into those neighborhoods since he's been mayor. And let's be frank about it, Ray. Since the 1960s, this country has spent billions and billions of dollars trying to rectify the situation of African Americans being enslaved in this country. But the slavery ended in the 1860s. In the 1960s, the United States of America started actively putting forth programs to try to correct the situation. There are more millionaires and more billionaires in America of African descent than in any country in the world. That has to say something about us. So I say we have to clamp down on those demonstrations. They're not good for anybody. I do not understand what Johnson thinks he's getting out of this. I mean,
Well,
do you see what his
well,
position
it
is?
looks like it. Listen, it looks like 27 of the aldermen. It's 50 aldermen. 27 is a majority. 26 is a majority, but they have 27 votes. I think it was at Alderman Hopkins from the second ward, who I don't know a lot about, but he introduced an ordinance, a plan to give the police superintendent the power to declare teen curfews anytime, anywhere, and that passed 27 to 22 over Mayor Johnson's objections. Now, I don't think it's the teen curfews that bothers Mayor Johnson, because we got to the city already has the power to impose curfews any way it wants. But Johnson, you're right, is soft on crime. He believes that we have that the city needs to do more to help these teens, to give them alternatives. I don't agree with that. I think that there are a lot of good people, black, Hispanic, white, Arab, everybody, ethnic, European, in the city. The majority want to do the right thing, but it's small groups that seem to get away with crime. The laws are written in a way to allow them to do whatever they want. They raise, all that the former state's attorney, Kim Fox, raised the ceiling on what constituted a felony theft you could steal you stole $500 and it would be a felony. Now she raised it to 1,000, and that encouraged more people to go steal. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. We got a great state's attorney, Eileen Burke, but and she's doing the best she can. But crime still is the big problem in Chicago. And as you pointed out, we got these teenagers that are running around destroying stuff, breaking buildings, windows, uh, uh, breaking into businesses, not just individually like thieves, but as open, brazen groups like wolf packs. 20, 15, 20 kids, they go into an area, they break stuff, they protest, they riot, they cause trouble, and no one seems to be able to get this under control. And so the city council, I think, wants to do something that looks like they're doing something, but I don't think this teen curfew does anything more than the city already could do. It's just that the city isn't doing it. And maybe that's why they want to give the police superintendent the power to say, listen, forget about the mayor. You just go ahead and declare a teen curfew anywhere, anytime, any place.
But Ray, I still
Stuff
ask the
happens.
question, what is it that Johnson thinks he's getting out of this? It's no political advantage, that's for sure. He's lost additional support
Yes.
because of his position on this.
Well, he says it. His argument is that he's going to veto it, and he
Right.
does have the power to veto it because they don't have a two-thirds vote. I think, what do they need? What's the two-thirds vote? 30 something,
34, I think.
34 votes. The supporters only have 27, so they're seven short. They may get a couple, but they're not going to override his veto. But he
No.
says that this type of strategy, I don't necessarily agree with him, but I think he's between a rock and a hard place on this crime issue. Nobody's been able to solve this in Chicago. He says it's counterproductive in reducing crime. That's what he says. And he thinks it's going to create tensions between residents and police and result in more crime. That's his argument. I don't know what's right because, you and I have been in Chicago forever, since the 70s. I covered Chicago, politics. You and I, you've been involved in Chicago politics. It has the same problem, crime that gets out of hand and they can't control it. And people are running from the city.
For
And
sure.
it's not, it isn't being resolved. I think the bigger problem is being missed. How do we need to be tough on crime in Chicago. And until we're tough on crime, nothing's going to change there.
Well, not passing a curfew certainly isn't going to make it anything better as far as crime goes. And I mean, it just, well, maybe I've been gone too long, but I just don't comprehend why Johnson would oppose this curfew. You know, but
Yeah, I think it's a political power issue, not about crime.
I'm
Johnson
interested.
feels they're trying to undermine him and give the power to the police chief. The police chief can decide. It should be the mayor. I mean, but this is the
Absolutely.
new independent city council that we have.
Yeah, well, that's what the news media always wanted. I
Yeah,
was
they
part of
got it.
I was part of the rubber stamp Richard
Right,
A. Daley City Council.
right.
And then when Belanda came in and myself and seven or eight other aldermen decided that we were going to be really legislators and started doing things on our own, the news media criticized us for being obstructionists.
Yeah, the news media wants the news. And good isn't news. Bad is always news. Bill, we're kind of we're right up against the end of the show.
Okay, doke.
But it's been a lot of fun, and I think we covered a lot of topics. So I just want to tell everybody again, listen, you've been listening to Two Guys on Politics with our co-host, former Congressman Bill Lipinski, and myself, Ray Hanania. This is June 20th, 2025, Season 4, Episode 14 of Two Guys on Politics, broadcast on the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 radio in Michigan. You can go to our YouTube channel, twoguysonpolitics.com. Bill, thank you again. It's always interesting. I urge people, don't get upset don't take sides. Listen to the different views and try to understand the issues better, because I think part of the problem is people don't really get to hear the issues. It's just like a one-sided propaganda in other places, and
I
instead of
just
having
wish that more Americans would become involved and interested in what's going on in their country, in their government, in their politics.
yes.
'Cause that's really the only way we're going to get out of this great divide. If we have people really understand what the issues are, how they might be solved, and look at the other person's point of view.
And power politics starts in the neighborhood, not
Right.
in the Middle East or overseas. All right, everybody, listen, thank you so much for joining us again. This is Two Guys on Politics at twoguysonpolitics.com. I'm Ray Hanania with Bill Lipinski. We will talk to you again next week. Thank you for listening, everybody. Have a great week. Bye bye.